What is up, guys? Welcome back to In the Corner with Carlos Calleja. Let's get my instant reactions to UFC Abu Dhabi, Robert Whittaker versus Reinier de Ritter. My first pick that I gave you guys, holy shit, I am so sorry. Marcus Buchecha looked awful against Martin Buday. And Martin Buday did not look great either. He did outstrike Marcus Buchecha. Marcus Buchecha wearing a lot of damage on the face. But just in general, Buchecha could not get any takedowns going. When he did, it was because Buday was tired. And then just in general, he was doing nothing. When he got to the when Buchecha got to the back, was internal, didn't sink his hooks in, didn't try to really go for any chokes. When he would try to get his ground and pound, he would stand up out of turtle and try to strike, allowing Buday to stand back up. And you would think that an ADCC and an IBJJF world champ would be hunting a rear naked choke finish when they have the opportunity to sink their hooks in and get the back, but no. Buchecha, yet another one person who's come out, Patchy Mix, another Kaya Sakura, another one of these guys coming out with a lot of hype and just shit in the bed. Marcus Buchecha is so embarrassing, losing first fight of the night to Martin Buday. Martin Buday, like I said, didn't look great, but just outstruck him in general. And that was it for my first fight. Otherwise, my picks did great. I'm gonna put my picks up right here in the corner, so you guys can see. I'll put them. Maybe that's a better point. Put them right up here in the corner, so you guys can see what my picks ended up looking like. But yeah, that first fight of the night, Buchecha, what the hell are you doing, brother? All right, now this wasn't in one of my picks that I gave you guys, but Bryce Mitchell versus Saeed Nurmagomedov. What a great fight for somebody who enjoys grappling. There were a lot of times that, you thought that maybe Bryce or Saeed would be able to just maintain dominant position and try to throw up more subs. Bryce did a really good job trying to be offensive, had a really good offensive guard. But that fight, I just wanted to break it down for you guys and talk about it a little bit because that fight was so fun. Bryce Mitchell getting his 135 debut. Started off a little slow. Saeed Nurmagomedov actually cracked him and dropped him in the first round with a really nice knee as Bryce was kind of changing levels. I don't believe he was really shooting in for a shot, but I know he was just feinting a level change there, and Saeed catches him really clean on the chin, dropping him. But Bryce does a really good job in the second and third round, bouncing back, looks really focused and trying to get a finish in the second round. You're actually going into the third round as well. There's a clip of his coach saying, "Let's go, farm boy. Let's go, farm boy," which is really fun to watch, especially Bryce coming from Arkansas. Man, that guy eats freaking roadkill. He looked really good today at 135, and all besides the point, looked really good at 135. A few times, though, that I thought he had, that Saeed had an opportunity to really disengage in the grappling and get up and start to strike again with Bryce. We saw that he had a better time striking with Bryce than Bryce did standing. And I think that Saeed had a few opportunities when he would reverse or sweep Bryce to stand up and disengage or really force a disengagement and get back up to try to strike, but he seemed almost complacent on the ground, allowing Bryce Mitchell to, scramble and use his jiu-jitsu, which I know 10 Planet is very happy about that win. Eddie Bravo is very happy about that. Bryce doing a great job trying to play some rubber guard. Wasn't really effective, though. But just overall, Bryce making his 135 debut, maybe with one or two more wins, especially if he gets one decisive win, a finish. I wouldn't be surprised if we see him possibly getting a title shot against Merab, especially if Merab beats Sandhagen. By the way, I'm working on a breakdown video for that Merab Sandhagen Jiu-Jitsu grappling, guys. But yeah, like I said, Bryce Mitchell looked really good in his 135 debut in the second and third rounds. Maybe a little bit of nervous energy in the first round, but good stuff out of Bryce at UFC Abu Dhabi tonight. Excited to see what he's going to do at 135 in the bantamweight division. And maybe give Merab Dvalishvili some fresh meat, some fresh blood. All right, guys, now let's break down the co-main event of the evening. Marcus McGhee versus Petr Yan. Marcus McGhee, the number 12 ranked, dropping down to fight Petr Yan at the number 3 ranked. And exactly what I said in my previous video, my prediction video, happened. I think that if Petr Yan just puts the pressure on him and decides to trade, I think we're going to see a slow burn, unanimous decision win for Petr Yan, and he may be getting his title shot next after the Sandman. Petr Yan really started slow, and it was a little odd to watch, especially knowing that Marcus was going to try to put it on him early. Started slow, but then, in the second round, you could clearly see that Petr was the better fighter. And like I mentioned, I talked about it a little bit. Nobody's really traded with Marcus in the pocket before. And we saw Petr really stay and play that clinch game in the pocket. And that game was working to perfection for Petr Yan. Really working well in the clinch, using really good clinch uppercuts and a few elbows. It just looked good. He looked like his former self, quick, snappy, and he's fighting a very dangerous fighter in Marcus McGhee. Marcus McGhee did not look awful, but he just did not look the caliber of a number 3 ranked fighter in the UFC just yet. Maybe give him 1 or 2 more fights and maybe let him get that opportunity again. He's still number 13 ranked. I wouldn't be surprised if we see Marcus McGhee possibly get another opportunity, within the next few years. But Petr Yan, really decisive. Like I said, slow burn for Petr Yan. Just kind of cooked Marcus McGhee. Did a great job in the pocket. Nobody's, like I said, traded with Marcus, and nobody's kind of put that pressure on Marcus before. And Petr Yan just did that. He really did a great job of putting that pressure on. He didn't really mix that wrestling in at all. If I remember correctly, he shot 1 really good takedown, and that was in the 3rd round only. But otherwise, just the striking in general of Petr Yan, especially in the clinch, was phenomenal. He looked like the Petr Yan of old, and he's looking to get that belt back. Maybe we see a Merab Petr Yan. But he did call out Corey Sandhagen, and he called out the winner of this fight. I'd love to see that, guys. Petr Yan, Merab, or Petr Yan, Corey Sandhagen. Crazy fight. Like I said, Petr Yan looked like Petr Yan of old. All right, so now we're going to break down the main event. We're going to talk about that a little bit. Right, you're seeing all over social media, robbery, robbery, robbery. Look, I think that it is not a robbery. I agree, yes, Robert could have won, and that's who I think could have won. And when I first, heard the decision being read out, I was like, no way, that it is a robbery. But then, I kind of watched the fight back, and I thought, and I realized, RDR won. He controlled the grappling. He controlled the pace of the fight. Yes, he did get dropped really bad in the 3rd round, which is kind of why I thought Robert Whittaker won. And Robert did a great job of, putting that pressure on him in the 3rd round and trying to get that finish, but unable to. Just in general, though, it was, RDR has this Dricus du Plessis act, this vibe to him where he's just odd, right? I was talking to a high school friend of mine, and one of the things that we got to talk to RDR about is, like, he's got to take a class on how you react to getting hit, because that could lose you fights. And you have people like Michael Bisping, Paul Felder talking about it in the commentary booth, right? You get hit even with just a little touchy jab, and you kind of react, really strongly. That's going to look really poor in the judge's eyes. So, it was odd, because Robert would be hitting RDR a lot, and he would look like Rob of old, moving quick, in and out, in and out. Yes, he did slow down a little sooner than I expected, but he was doing a great job of lunging in, hitting RDR with his 1-2s. But RDR just reacted oddly, but then he would be able to fire back. He'd kind of run away and then just march right back in, controlled the pace, kind of struggled initially. Rob did a great job of defending takedowns throughout the fight, but then, just RDR was just able to control the pace of the fight. And when he did get the fight to the ground, you could see that there was a clear difference. And there was even one point where Robert Whittaker actually had the opportunity to get to RDR's back, and he let him back up, which was definitely a little bit confusing to me, right? And yes, so like I said, I don't know if this is a robbery. I wouldn't be upset if the fight went to Robert, and I wouldn't be upset if the fight went to RDR. And I think the biggest thing is reaction to punches. One thing that Paddy Pimblett changed specifically is he would say that the judges and fans would think he would be getting hit so much, even though that wasn't always the case. So because of the way his hair would be flowing, so he braided it. And now, you can't tell as much, according to him. And I think that if RDR is able to really change that sort of reaction to getting hit, that sort of a ow reaction to getting hit, I think that RDR is going to become somebody who people aren't going to say is so sloppy and so unconventional, which I think he's always going to be unconventional in the striking. And I think he's always going to be very conventional and technical in the grappling. But I just think that if you're able to add that level to your game, RDR may be the one guy that can give Dricus that problem. I mean, the weirdo versus the weirdo style is really interesting. It was sad to see Robert Whittaker lose, though. Very class act, though. He was a class act through and through. That's why you got to love Bobby Knuckles. He'll be back. But RDR, man, what a crazy fight. UFC Abu Dhabi did not upset. What a crazy card. You got crazy knockouts like Muslim Salikov knocking out Carlos Leal, calling out Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Guys, what a great, great card. Like I said, sorry about my first pick. I mean, Marcus Buchecha just shit the bed. But that's all I got for you guys tonight. Peace out. Let's talk later, guys. Peace.
Turn me on.